The embattled Syrian government suffered another diplomatic blow as fighting continues to rage in the war-torn country. Britain's Foreign Office says Syria's most senior diplomat in London has defected. Meanwhile, fierce clashes between rebels and government troops continue in the city of Aleppo, the country's largest city and commercial center. This amateur video was reportedly shot in Aleppo. The United Nations says 200,000 people have fled the violence in the city. It has a population of more than 3 million. The UN also says that a convoy carrying the head of the UN observer mission in Syria was attacked over the weekend, but nobody was hurt because the vehicles were armored. Monday, UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon had this to say about the ongoing crisis.
The government is adding to its brutal crackdown by attacking heavily populated areas with the fighter aircraft and helicopters. The armed opposition groups have also stepped up their attacks. Each day, as the violence spirals, more Syrians are killed, injured, and tortured, or forced to flee their homes or their country.
Joining us is CBS News foreign affairs analyst Pamela Falk. Pam, good morning to you.
Good morning.
We just heard from Ban Ki-moon, another voice at the UN talking, Pam. There's a lot of talk continuing.
Absolutely. There's very little that the Security Council can do with the Russia and China vetoes, and therefore Ban Ki-moon, the Secretary General, is being very outspoken, calling for an end to the violence, and that's about all they can do right now. Now, they do support this UN mission, which are the mission of observers, and it's been extended. And that was good news, but they're not doing that much. What he said today was they're not doing nothing either. They are actually helping on humanitarian aid, and they're there for when a transition comes.
There's a vote on a resolution in the General Assembly on Thursday. Big disparity, though, between what it actually says and what it actually does.
Yes, precisely, because a General Assembly resolution has no enforcement power. But I think, nonetheless, this is a very important resolution because it came from the Arab League. Last week, a decision by the Arab League to call for Assad to step down. And that's the Arab League calling for it. And so they've incorporated that into a UN General Assembly resolution. They've taken out things that the Arab League wanted, in other words, to protect refugees. But so many countries just wanted it to have no reference to an outside use of force that they watered it down a bit. But the headline here is that they call for Assad to leave in order to accelerate a peaceful transition, and that's very important. If the world is seeing the kind of changes, the differences on the ground, the stick-to-itiveness of the opposition, the unity, which you are starting to see at least with the Syrian National Council, and then the defections, all of that together is it is turning the tide.
But does it do anything, Pam? And I think that's the big question. The UN Security Council can't come to an agreement, so we're not really seeing any action from the international community.
Right.
What comes next?
Well, what comes next is what's going on the ground. And a lot of people have compared this to Iraq. There is a lot of a sense of Iraq because there's so many different ethnic groups that in a power vacuum may fight. But that's a little jumping ahead for now because the bottom line here is with a government, the government of Assad, willing to kill its own people and staying in it to the end, it seems, and not willing to leave, that it is going to be a protracted battle, and that's what everyone thinks. I think the UN trying to help and getting the word out. It is not the day, Terrell, when his father just crushed the opposition in 1982. This is a different time. There's cell phones, there's video, there's the view of people suffering. And I think Assad's days are numbered. You've heard a lot of diplomats say that. But what comes between now and then is a lot of pain and suffering.
In the meantime, the Syrian government keeping up its assault on the city of Aleppo. 200,000 people have fled. Can the rebels maintain?
The rebels are trying to hold out different places, and they've gotten some tanks and they've taken over some security checkpoints, but ultimately they are out-armed and outmanned by the Syrian army. So it's not looking good.
And then you've also got the refugees that are fleeing the country, that are trying to get to wherever they can.
Thousands.
Is that putting a strain on other countries?
Absolutely, on Turkey, on Lebanon, on all of the countries in the region that are receiving those, Jordan, that are receiving those refugees. And so it's spilling into other areas. And of course, if the Assad government did use chemical weapons, which is the fear, it would spill over even into Israel.
Could this violence in Syria spread to a wider Middle East conflict, something that hasn't even been talked about just yet?
Yes, absolutely, and that's Israel's fear, and that is because part of the issue here is that Iran is supporting the government of Assad, and they're trying to keep a Shia government in, and that is at the same time that Iran is playing out the clock really on its nuclear weapons, and so those things put together could absolutely spill into a much broader war.
CBS News foreign affairs analyst Pamela Falk joining us this morning. Pam, thank you so much.
Good to be here, Terrell. Thanks.